thought there was something wrong with my dogs. Posted by Human Mainframe. There's something wrong with my dog. Zodiac, my miniature Australian Shepherd, is probably the most gorgeous dog you've ever laid your eyes on. My girlfriend, Faith, has a thing for mini Aussies. She had another coming into our relationship. About 2 years into our relationship, we were finally settling into our new home and living together for the first time. We decided it was time to introduce a baby into our lives. A fur baby, of course. Faith had kept her eye on this one red merle Aussie in particular for a while. We decided to meet him and our hearts simply melted. Now, I don't know if you know much about Australian Shepherds, but they're fiercely loyal and intelligent. Merles in particular are a bit more intense. The merle coat is actually a mutation in the gene that gives them their gorgeous look and quirky personality. But something about the red merle gene, something that makes them probably the most wild and rowdy Aussies out there. Anyways, we brought our adorable puppy home for the first time when he was about 8 weeks old. He was so shy and timid at first. Well, for a few weeks actually. If I'm being completely honest, he's probably the biggest chicken you'd ever meet, even now. Slowly but surely, he started to warm up to us. He loves weaseling his way up to us and giving us big sloppy wet kisses as often as possible. He likes to sleep underneath our bed like a weasel too. Although his name is Zodiac, we call him Weasel, or we for short, 90% of the time, for all the ways he acts like a weasel. Fast forward to when we moved to our new apartment. We tried to make the transition as easy as possible for the dogs, so we packed here and there without making too much of a fuss, and on moving day we left them with Grandma to run and play in the backyard while we snuck away to finish packing and moving. Straight away we unpacked as much as we could that day. We picked them back up and took them to our new home. Since there wasn't much left to unbox, they settled in very quickly. Zodiac is 2.5. 2 when we moved, and his big sister Karma is 5. She's a blue merle, in case you were wondering. We have been here for a bit. Now there's only about 3 months until our lease is up. Things were great for a while. Our apartment is really just a fourplex, and we are on the top floor over garages, so we don't really hear our neighbors whatsoever. Well, aside from 2 neighbors we called the drunk ladies, who must have been sisters who screamed at each other after having a bottle of wine outside every so often. But that was it. And they've moved now, just about 2 months ago. And that's when I noticed something wasn't right with my dog. At about 4 o'clock in the morning, every morning, Karma and Zodiac would start barking at the top of their lungs. Nothing but bark. Wake Faith and I up daily. We would call for them and call for them. Karma would come, but Weasel wouldn't. I imagine, like a crying baby, one of us would always get up and go get Zodiac and bring him back to bed and close the door. Once we realized how habitual it was, we started to become curious what they were barking at so early in the morning. We'd look out our window and see nothing. No one. No garbage man, no people coming home from a late night, no one leaving for an early work day, just absolute silence and sleepiness outside. Martha, a neighbor in the fourplex next to ours, whose patio is practically connected to ours, told us that our dogs have begun to wake her up with their barking. She threatened to contact our landlord if we didn't fix it. We couldn't have that. One of our dogs is actually not on our lease. So of course I swiftly apologized and told her that we would make sure they wouldn't wake her up again. We tried everything. First thing we tried was simply kenneling them at night. 4 AM they had somehow escaped and went on their barking spree. We tried keeping our bedroom door closed, but Zodiac started to dig holes in our wall. And well, that doesn't look good for getting our deposit back. Either my girlfriend or I would set an alarm just before the barking should start to stop them from barking altogether. That worked for a while, but wasn't a great solution long term. We tried bark collars, vibrating collars, and even shock collars. Nothing could stop them. When they were finished barking at whatever it is they were barking at, Zodiac would crawl to his spot under the bed so quickly and immediately began whimpering. That too had no real solution. He wouldn't come out for even a treat until morning. The strange thing was that during the day they were both happy and healthy dogs. Playful, not timid at all. One thing that we never really noticed until we had exhausted all of our options was that Zodiac tried to tell us something every time we took him for a walk. We had thought it was simply excitement to be outside in the fresh air. But we were wrong. Oh, how badly we were wrong. Every day when we would walk him or simply take him out to potty, we have to walk by the drunk lady's empty apartment door. Every time we passed, he would howl and wag his tail, sniffing the door. He never knew or met them. In fact, once they asked to pet him, but for how timid he is with strangers, I politely declined, as he can either be reactive or wet himself. And that was that. So I knew it had nothing to do with any kind of emotion or attachment that he had with them. He probably wouldn't recognize their scent either, but something was making him stop at the door every day before getting out into the yard. Naturally, my girlfriend and I decided to become sleuths and put on our detective hats. Maybe someone was squatting there who had a dog who maybe had to come and go around that time. They could just be so quick we wouldn't notice. That idea didn't really pan out, as our landlord was doing showings of the apartment randomly throughout the week. I couldn't imagine a squatter willing to risk being caught in a semi-active apartment. We came up with a new idea and started taking different routes for our walks, and on one of these occasions I noticed our landlord's black SUV in the sole back driveway that leads to that apartment. But even our previous neighbors never parked there because it's right next to an alley with some pretty questionable people across it. It isn't so odd that our landlord is there, but why not just park in the empty drive in front? It still leads directly into the apartment. I didn't think much of it, not until the barking again the next night. It occurred to me that maybe our landlord was in there, parked out back where we couldn't see from our windows. I decided a new plan of attack. I told my girlfriend that I would take care of Zodiac that night and let him outside to get some energy out. She sleepily rolled over and gave a mumbled "thank you," and she went back to sleep. It is 4 a.m, so I appreciated it. I put on Zodiac's leash and out the door we go. Immediately he went straight for the empty apartment and let out a blood-curdling scream, something I hadn't heard from a dog before. I picked him up quickly and ran to the backyard under a tree to make sure no one had heard him or could see us, especially whoever was in that apartment. We waited for a bit and saw a light come on inside. I pretty much froze while Zodiac was trying to weasel his way out of my arms. A head popped out, but I was so far back I couldn't tell who it was. They looked around and immediately went back inside and turned off the light. I calmed down thinking, yes, it's a squatter. It's only a squatter. After refocusing Zodiac, I let him do his business and we went on walking towards the other side of the fourplex, where the driveway was. My landlord's car is there. The garage was open with what I could only describe as pure horror. Every inch of the wall was covered with sharp, surgical objects and lights set up like I'd imagine a YouTuber's workspace. In the middle of the garage, there was a young woman lying on a purple chaise with something connected to her arm. I couldn't tell what it was, but I had to get out of there. My heart was pounding and it was as if any sound became muffled and my vision became tunneled. I noticed I'm carrying Zodiac, clutching his jaws together tightly as I make a beeline towards my apartment. I ease up on how tightly I'm holding him and set him down on the ground. I didn't say a word to him, but I crouched down to him, eye level. I swear I saw just as much fear in his eyes as I'm sure he saw in mine. I pulled myself together and tried as best I could to breathe casually as we make the walk past a not-so-empty apartment to make it to the stairs. As soon as I get to the bottom of the stairs, I see my landlord. She looks cheerful? I don't know if that's the right word, but happier to see me than if it were daytime and I passed by. She asked me what I was up to. I stiffly said, "Oh, just taking Mr. Zodiac here for a late night tinkle. He likes to bark a lot in the early morning. Finally figured out he just needs a wee." "So I've heard," she replied slyly, still with a smile on her face. "Was he the one who yelped about 20 minutes ago?" "Oh yeah, he's noisy. I accidentally stepped on his paw." I feel my face got flush as I say this. "Oh, poor little guy. Well, if you're up, would you care to take a look at all the new improvements we are making? We are planning to do this to all the apartments in the fourplex. So just a sneak peek into what you'll be getting if you end up renewing your lease." I paused for a moment. had an internal battle. If I say no, will she think that I saw something I shouldn't have? Or if I say yes, am I walking straight into a trap? It probably only lasted for 5 seconds, but my mind was racing with so many different scenarios and outcomes that I often found myself winding up like the girl in the garage. Maybe I'll come to an open house. I told Faith I would be right back in after I let him potty. Yes, surely that answer will do. It's fair, not a hard no, and polite. But didn't you start walking him about 20 minutes ago? Surely she won't miss you a few more. Her eyes grew a bit darker, but still had a polite smile plastered on her face. He has to find the perfect area to lay his immaculate poo. Pretty sure he thinks he's the prince. Her eyes grew cold and serious. Her smile had faded. Alrighty. Well, I certainly hope you do come to a showing. It is really so beautiful, and the updates are to die for. Of course. Well, good night. I quickly turned and ran up the stairs. She looked up at me on my porch and said, "Don't forget about your other pup, too," and closed the door. How did she know about our other dog? Why wouldn't she have said something earlier, like an actual landlord? I got into bed. Zodiac decided to cuddle close to me instead of his usual hiding spot under the bed. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to wake Faith up about this. She would want to see for herself. I couldn't let her do that. I didn't want to call the police and have their sirens warn her, letting her know that I did in fact know that she was up to something. I decided to wait until morning. I didn't think I could help that poor young girl tonight. I didn't even know if she was dead or alive, so I waited. I was up all night using a VPN and data on my computer, searching the internet for anything that could relate to what was going on. I couldn't find much. Every here and there I would see a young woman, early 20s, missing, but they were so scattered around the state and across the state line I didn't figure they could have a connection. The only thing I could uncover were their distraught boyfriends, girlfriends, husbands, wives, their families. She was so excited to be looking for her first home with her significant other. Looking for her first home. I repeated that over and over. It didn't click right away, maybe denial. Eventually I fell asleep. In the morning, I called non-emergency police to let them know what I saw. I asked them to keep the tip anonymous, but told them everything I could, including the time. Just about 3 times a week, patrol cars drove down the street and down the alley. My dogs finally stopped barking. This went on for about a month. Then the barking was back. My heart sank. My mouth ran dry. I knew she was up to something again. In a moment, everything started to make sense. I quickly hopped on my laptop and searched Lisa and Freely Estates, who my landlord worked for. They have properties in 3 states, Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, the same areas where these girls have gone missing. I told my girlfriend everything. I showed her everything I found online. She decided to take Zodiac for a walk herself at 4 a.m. I begged her not to, begged her to stay. She wouldn't. I couldn't go with her. I couldn't see anything like that again. Only 10 minutes later she comes in. Faith's face was fast, pale, almost green. I couldn't tell if she was going to faint or puke, or both. She sat for a long time, over an hour, staring at the wall. There wasn't anything I could do to help except hold her. She began to rock like she was an infant and eventually fell asleep. The next morning I asked her about what she saw. She didn't say anything except, "We have to go to the police." We went to the police station, told them everything we knew, and she revealed to the police and me what she saw the night before. She recounted something I couldn't even imagine in nightmares. She said she saw so much blood. Most of the surgical instruments on the wall had been covered by a tarp of some sort, splattered with blood. She saw light focused on a girl in a purple chaise and a camera next to her as our landlord was cutting fingers off a writhing, mangled girl. She said she saw liquid dripping down an IV into the girl and landlord's arms. She grew pale and green again as she said this. The officer listened in bewilderment. He wrote everything down and then sent us home. No answer, no "we'll send someone by," nothing. Radio silence. Our lease was up, our landlord asked us to stay and said we could have both dogs on the lease and not have to pay an extra pet deposit and the update to our apartment without a rental increase. We said, "Oh, amazing." We said, "Yes." She said she would draw up the papers and we could sign next week. The following day, we took as much as we could in our 2 little cars and left everything else behind. We never looked back. A year has passed since all of this. I really blocked it out of my mind. Zodiac is almost 4 and karma is getting grayer and grayer every day. Faith and I have gotten engaged and we are finally about to buy our first home. Until today, I haven't thought about what happened to our last apartment. I didn't want to think about it. But my Facebook timeline was filled with landlady convicted on 14 counts of first-degree murder and awaiting the trial of 7 counts of attempted murder. Suspected of killing dozens more. I couldn't help but click the links. Pictures of my old fourplex, pictures of the empty apartment. Scratch marks, blood stains, IVs said to drip liquid LSD to induce hellish nightmares in the last moments of life. Every murder related to every property she had shown in the tri-state area. She brought them all to our building, our home. Thanks to the upstairs neighbors and their dogs, the police were able to put an end to the gruesome killings going on just feet below. As I breathlessly put my phone down, it buzzes. My face feels flush again. My feet and hands are numb and tingling. I slowly bring the phone back to my vision. It reads, "I really do hope we get to know each other more. You and Faith really are great tenants. I have some friends who would love to see more of your girlfriend. They said when they saw a glimpse of her in one of my videos, they only wanted more."